This is a WGNS Action Line.
Reporting on local issues.
Talking with Rutherford County newsmakers
since 1947.
This is a WGNS Action Line. Now your host, Scott Walker.
And this morning from the Rutherford County School System, we have Choice School Coordinator Dr. Jeff McCann and Choice School Specialist Melinda Walters. How are you both doing this morning?
Great, Scott. Thanks for having us today.
Yes, thanks for having us.
So I guess starting off this morning, what are Choice Schools and what is the Choice School program?
Traditionally, Rutherford County, or at least in recent history, Rutherford County has really made an effort to provide additional options for parents as to where they can have their students enrolled in schools. Every year, basically around the beginning of December, beginning of January, we open seats at most all of our schools. Last year we had seats at every school to offer for anybody to apply to. And this year it'll be pretty much the same. There may be a few overcrowded schools that won't have any vacancies to offer, but very few of those. We also have our special programs like our magnet schools and our Holloway High School and our virtual school that are also available.
And for those listening, you can text in any questions related to the county schools and the choice schools by texting 615-893-1450. We already had a text here, and it's asking, is the school choice the same thing as a zoning waiver, or is that something that's a totally different process?
It is actually basically the same thing. We've just kind of changed the name of it from zone exemption to open choice seats.
It's the same, basically, I guess, just a new name for it all.
It is. There are a couple of other zone exemptions that have special categories, like for those that need a home contract zone exemption. They may have a contract to build a home in a school zone, but are not planning to move in because it won't be completed until after the school year starts. We will go ahead and grant them a home contract zone exemption. That way they can go ahead and start at the school that they'll eventually be at anyway. So there are special categories like that.
I'm guessing that probably happens fairly often as fast as homes are being built here.
It does. We grant quite a few of those home contract zone exemptions.
I'm curious, do you have a breakdown of how many students come from an apartment complex versus residential housing and things along those lines?
I don't really have a breakdown of that, honestly.
Yeah.
As long as you're a resident within Rutherford County, anywhere within Rutherford County, you can apply for a zone exemption.
I bet that changes a lot as far as people moving from one place to another.
It does. It does.
What is the biggest obstacle that you face right now as far as your department in particular goes?
I think dealing with all the continual rezoning that we seem to do as a district. I mean, last year we rezoned our high schools. This year we're rezoning our middle schools. And being fair in that process, and when we offer zone exemptions to parents who maybe don't want to move to a new school or are forced to move to a new school, that's probably the biggest obstacle for my office right now.
Of course, it seems like whenever a new school is built, a new neighborhood is often what follows or built around the same time as that new school is being built.
That's the hope, that we can keep up with the building of neighborhoods, but we're not always super successful in that. It's hard to keep up.
How many schools have we got right now?
52.
52. And that includes the one virtual school, right?
It does.
The virtual school, how is that looked at as far as zoning and zoning exemptions, or is it even categorized into that?
The virtual school does not have a zone, so to speak, so really any student can apply to the virtual school. They don't have unlimited seats, but they do have a lot more seats to offer than most of our traditional schools. And it used to be that you could even apply to the virtual school if you resided outside of Rutherford County. That's no longer the case. The school board has decided that starting with this open enrollment period, that only residents of Rutherford County can apply even for any of our open choice seats.
So do you already have some students who are finishing up their school year? Let's say they're a sophomore or junior and they are already in that program, but they are from another area.
Sure do. Yes, we do. And that's been traditional for virtual schools really throughout the state, as they've allowed students to apply and attend when they live in other districts. And that really was kind of the push for Rutherford County to start their own virtual school, because we were losing some students to virtual schools in other districts before we opened our own.
I never even realized that.
That's true.
So the student, though, I assume they still have to be a Tennessee resident?
They do.
They may be from a nearby county even. There's still a principal at the virtual school, right?
Yes, there is. Dr. Jessica Supicon is the principal there.
I'm guessing not a lot of problems with student behavior, or maybe there are. I don't know.
I'm not sure there are, but managing students through a virtual platform is a little bit different than managing students there in person.
Now, here's another question. Obviously, this does not have anything to do with virtual schools. Is transportation provided if my child goes into that choice program and attends a school outside of their zone? And if so, what type of transportation?
Transportation-wise, if they apply for an open seat outside of their zone school, they are responsible for the transportation of their child to school.
And are there some cases where they could take a bus to get closer to the school, or is that not even a question that can be asked?
Really, the only special transportation considerations along that vein are to the Central Magnet and to the Oakland IB program. Some of those special programs like that are in a different part of the county that draw kids from the north end of the county. They do provide some buses to pick up at hub locations like Smyrna High School to transport those students. But other than that, no, there is no opportunity. And when you agree to accept a zone exemption, you sign to say, I will provide the transportation for that. So that's a caveat going in.
And again, if a student is accepted into another school that's outside of their zone, are they automatically in that school for the next few years, however many years they have left in those grades, like let's say high school?
Yes, once they are accepted for an open enrollment position, they stay at that school for as long as they choose to.
Now, the initial acceptance there into that other school, can a principal turn down a student based on, let's say, grades like the GPA level or punishment at past schools or problematic children, if you would?
That's a great question, but and as a part of the application process, no, that's not a part of it now. You can't turn down an exemption based on past history. However, and parents understand this going in, as they can certainly lose that exemption. It can be taken away from them if they exhibit behavioral, attendance, academic type concerns.
So if there is a behavior problem once they get to that school, what usually happens? I mean, do they send them back to their school zone?
Well, if the behaviors are extreme and they continue, yes, they can lose that zone exemption and they have to go back to their home school.
Then I guess you have other choices as well, as far as like Daniel McKee. Is that still a school for children who do display problems on a regular basis? We
do have a couple of alternative school settings. Daniel McKee is one, Smyrna West is another, where students can be placed by the administration of their school if behavior becomes such an issue that they need that alternative placement.
Does that happen often when it comes to those who are part of that school choice program?
I don't know that it happens very often for school choice students. Usually those that apply to attend a different school do so for certain reasons. They're really invested in that school and the programs that they have to offer. So they're there of their own accord, and as a result, usually it's a positive experience. And
then the siblings of that student who is accepted, once they get to school age and they're ready for that same grade or the next grade down maybe from the student who's already been approved, what happens in those cases?
They also then would have to apply for an open seat in the county and then see if they are accepted as well.
So there's no guarantee there?
No, there isn't.
You can literally have your kids going to two different schools across town, which I can see where that would be tough on a parent.
And that happens very often. It's a difficult situation, it is, but unfortunately Rutherford County does not have a sibling priority option right now.
And the bottom line is, I guess our schools are pretty full already.
They are. That's the biggest component there.
And how full are our schools? I mean, is there a percentage at each school where you're 95% capacity?
I think most of our schools range from the 90 to 100 plus capacity right now.
100 plus, wow. So some schools are overcrowded.
They are. They really are.
What do you do in those cases? I mean, outside of the school choice program, how do you go about making sure that there's enough teachers on hand even?
That is definitely a challenge, and it's one that our school board has faced quite a bit in these last recent years. As a result, they've had to do a lot of rezoning of students to fill possible empty seats at one school to alleviate the overcrowding at other schools. And other than purchase portable classrooms, your only other option next is to build additional schools. But you're right. finding enough teachers to fill those classrooms is a challenge, especially in today's job market for teachers.
Now, there was a point in Rutherford County where we had quite a few portable classrooms at several schools. Is that still an issue?
It's somewhat, but it has definitely gotten better with the building of new buildings. Many of our schools that had portables have either lost a good portion of them or even all of them. But there are still a lot of portables out there.
Do you expect there to be a growing number? I mean, obviously, there's going to be a growing number of students every year, but is it expected to be the same growth rate that we have seen over the past, let's say, 10 years?
We haven't seen any reason to believe that will slow down. It's been a very consistent build every year.
And are there already new schools on the drawing board that are about to be built?
There are. I mean, right now, the first school planned is a new high school in the north end of the county. And they're even considering, the last word I heard was almost near the Stewart's Creek zone. There's that great a need in that area for additional schools. So that's a high school that they'll be looking to build. I mean, also there's they're looking, part of their 5-year plan is to secure funding for an additional middle school and yet another high school somewhere in the district. Because we do predict that need.
Now, that Stewart's Creek area, that's in the Smyrna area.
It is.
And it's fairly close to the Williamson County line.
It is. Not quite as close as maybe Rock Springs is. That's right across the line.
Oh, wow.
But yes, it is in that end of the district.
Do you ever have parents who are maybe they're right there on the Williamson County line and they attempt to enroll their child into the Rutherford County School?
I have gotten a lot of requests, ironically, not so much for the Stewart's Creek area, but Eagleville is such a popular destination for parents and students. We get a lot of parents that contact me that are just over the line into a neighboring county that really want to go to Eagleville schools, but unfortunately they can't.
I can see where that, especially if your child's a middle school student or something, because you got, Page Middle School and I guess
Right.
Page High School in Williamson County, but that is a lot further to drive compared to Eagleville for that distance.
They're closer to Eagleville, but they're just over the line, and unfortunately that's where we draw the line.
That's interesting, though. And Eagleville is growing as well. Are you seeing a big growth out that direction, or is it just, minor compared to the rest of the county?
It's moving that way. It's kind of, we see a lot of growth in the Rockville area, which is out that direction, and I think gradually it is moving out towards Eagleville.
Now, what about the charter schools? I know that is, in a sense, under the Rutherford County school system, but how do students go about getting into a charter school if a parent wants to lean that direction?
Well, just like any of our open choice schools, they can apply, and they do have considerable seats to offer typically. We do have 2 currently operating charter schools that are under the Rutherford County authorization process. We authorize them, we monitor them, and we support them. But they're both in the Smyrna-Laverne area, and we'll be adding a third authorized by our district in the Smyrna area next year. Nova Smart Academy will open, serving just kindergarten in first grade in their first year, but building up to a K-8 school once they get full capacity. Then next year we'll have 2 additional charter schools that are not authorized by Rutherford County. They're authorized by the State Charter Commission. One of them is currently in operation, Rutherford Collegiate Prep in the Blackman area, and the other one will be a rocket ship school. And it plans to open in the Smyrna area as well. So we'll have a good number of charter schools in that north end of the county.
Now, how is that relationship? If Rutherford County, the school system is somewhat over those schools, or are they fully over those schools? How does that work?
Well, basically an authorizer, which is what we would consider Rutherford County here and our school board. We're tasked with monitoring the outputs that come from the charter school. In other words, their results. They get a tremendous amount of autonomy into how they go about meeting those targets, how they offer instruction, how they allot their staff, the curricular materials that they choose. So we don't have any say-so really or much over that. Basically, we're there to monitor how successful they are, and to provide support and make sure they remain compliant in state and local policies and laws.
Again, our number is 615-893-1450. You can text in any questions you may have. And this question asks, what exactly is the point of a charter school when we already have good schools in the county?
We do have great schools in our county, and I get that question a lot. But charter schools are just another way to offer some additional freedom for parents to choose different types of programs that they want their children to be involved in. I'll give you an example of that. The American Classical Academy out in Laverne, they offer a more classical model of instruction, focusing on very classic literature and the model in the classroom where the teacher really is providing a great bit of that content to those students. And a lot of parents are attracted to that more conservative classical model of instruction.
Again, we're talking about choice schools this morning, and I know you already answered this, but maybe this person is tuning in late, but they're asking if my students are already on a zoning exemption, do we still have to apply through the school choice program, or are we grandfathered in for that next year or the years that follow?
If they already have that zone exemption, that will continue until they further choose to leave the school. So they do not have to reapply.
And then how do parents receive that either acceptance or denial information? Is it just a letter that's mailed out?
It's from our online platform. The application process is now online. It's entirely online, and they get that notification directly from the platform that we use. And it's email or text or both.
Okay. And then how long does it usually take for them to actually find out if their child's accepted?
It's fairly quick. We usually in the seats are offered via a random lottery, basically, and when the application window closes at the end of January, we try to run those lotteries by the middle of February, and as soon as we run the lotteries, those communications instantly go out. They automatically go out to parents instantly, so they usually know by mid-February, 1st of March.
Do you record data whenever those school choice, whenever they're approved? Do you record the information and kind of follow those students to find out how well they're doing at this school that they've asked to go to?
That's a great question. No, we really don't track them at this point to see how successful they are. We don't.
That'd be interesting. I mean, is that something you could do?
We could. It would take quite a bit of data collection, but
yeah.
we could do that.
I'm curious.
It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, because you would think, well, if this parent is really pushing for this school, there must be good reasoning behind it. Right. So I would wonder, how are they doing? How are they performing?
I will say this, that it is extremely rare that I have a parent contact me to change their mind. Say it's just not working out. This is not what we thought it would be. We need to go back to our zone school. That is a rare occurrence. Well,
we've all been in school before, but we have those kids who don't seem to do very well in a lot of school settings. I've seen it firsthand when I was growing up. I'd see one kid change classrooms 3 times in a school year even.
Yeah, well, and that's the great part of the open choice program is, you have the options to find a place where maybe you feel like you fit in well.
I guess some schools, maybe they specialize more so, cater more so towards, let's say, the arts or something along those lines. And I guess in those situations, I could see where that would be a case.
Yeah, absolutely. As a former principal at Thurman Francis Arts Academy, I saw that every day. Students who really took to that arts-focused type program there and really, really thrived in that type of setting.
But then you also have to deal with the transportation issue.
That is true. That was also a challenge.
What are some of the other challenges that the parents are up against whenever they say, I would like my child to go to, then fill in the blank for whatever school it may be?
I think the availability of seats is probably the biggest challenge. You can't always get into the program that you want to just because we're so overcrowded. We have to limit that number of seats.
Now, I know you mentioned Eagleville as an example where you have parents in Williamson County even wanting to send their children there, but that school being out in the country in the rural area, it's almost like a private school. I mean, it's just a different type of atmosphere and population altogether. Do you see a big difference there when you compare it to some of the other schools?
Well, that is a big draw for that school. The fact that, number one, your children can go there from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, and it's a much smaller community. You don't feel like you're lost in the sea of kids, and it's a very close-knit, very tight community out there, and very supportive. And they have a lot of success. Athletically, they have a lot of athletic success, and it just becomes very popular. A lot of parents want to be in that small community.
And it's neat because they even do like a school homecoming parade through Eagleville itself. And you don't really get that same feeling, I guess, when you talk about some of the larger schools that are in the city of Murfreesboro as an example.
Yep, it's hard to get that. It's hard to duplicate that small town feel in a big town. It really is.
And I guess that's one of the draws as to why people are building out there more, or at least that direction.
I would say certainly so.
And then you've got the whole Rockville area. Now, do a lot of students from Rockville, do their parents ask for a zone waiver or, sign up through the school choice program to send their kids to, let's say, Eagleville?
That was a very popular setting last year. Yes, that happened a lot. I had a lot of Rockville area parents who felt like they were even closer to Eagleville who wanted to go out there, and we just could not accommodate them.
And Rockville High School, that was one of those schools that when it opened, it was already at capacity. I mean, it was already a big school in the making.
That's true, the middle school as well, and the elementary.
And how are they doing today as far as the student population, as far as numbers go today?
Probably the middle school out there is probably the one that's probably not going to have much capacity for any open seats next year just because they are so full.
When it comes to special education, are there certain schools where parents seem to kind of, gravitate towards for special education students?
No, I think Rutherford County does such a great job everywhere with their special needs students that their needs are going to be met really at any school that they attend. So it's rare that I get a request for a parent to attend a specific school just for a special ed program.
But there are, I guess, lots of services out there today, and it is a much different setting when compared to, let's say, 20 years ago. I mean, there is a lot that's changed in education.
There really has, and especially in the special ed area. I mean, the focus now is we want those kids in the general ed classroom as much as possible. And we do everything we can to make sure they're getting that grade level instruction, that same rigorous instruction as everybody else, and just providing additional supports in that classroom setting.
Has the whole federal funding, the shutdown of federal funding in a lot of ways, has that hurt the county school system, or has it changed maybe reporting to the federal government for certain programs?
Well, it in the very beginning, yes, it changed. Ms. Walter's position got put on hold, as a matter of fact, for that very reason. Because of the loss of federal funds, they had to shift other staff members, within the system who were being funded by those federal dollars. We had to shift them into roles where they could be funded with general fund. But gradually, most of that funding came back, and most all of that federal funding stuff came back.
And then the free and reduced lunch program, was that part of the federal government, or was that a state-funded program?
That's a federal government program, and I don't know that was really ever in danger of being cut.
Okay. And again, this morning we're talking about choice schools and the different decisions, I guess, that parents can make each year. If you have any questions, feel free to text us 615-893-1450. Right now the time, 8:43. We're going to take a short break. And again, with us today from the Rutherford County School System, we have Dr. Jeff McCann and also Melinda Walters. And they're both with the Choice School program. And Jeff, you're the Choice School Coordinator. Is that your official title?
Coordinator of Choice and Charter Schools.
Choice and Charter Schools. Okay. Yes. Right now the time, 8:43. We're going to take a short break, and then we will be right back.
This is Peter Demas, and our family is inviting your family to come eat with us at Demas's Restaurant. Demas's has had a bar when we opened 35 years ago, and we've done the exact same thing with our bar menu that we've done with our food menu. We get higher quality items, higher quality cocktails. Again, some people just want a drink with their meal, where they might be able to get a drink to complement their meals. You need to check it out, so come on over right now. Demas's Restaurant on Northwest Broad Street. We really focus on value.
Local farmers at the Winter Spring Rutherford County Farmers Market. Local meats, vegetables, and other produce. Every Friday, 8 to noon at the Lane Agri Park in Murfreesboro.
So bundle up and make your way every Friday at Lane Agri Park
On John R. Rice Boulevard. The Recycled Minute with our own Rocky the Raccoon. He's in Murfreesboro today, teaching us all to recycle right, Tennessee style.
I love coming up with new ideas to share with my friends.
Here's Rocky.
You know how kids are always getting hurt, and yeah, us adults too, I know that. Yeah, okay, anyway, after you recycle the majority of bottles at the end of the month, you know, the plastic ones that you use to hold water with, or the bottles that sodas come in, set a few aside, fill them up with water, and then put them in the freezer. That way you always have a reusable ice pack on hand if you ever get hurt. Maybe you fall, bruise your leg up or something. Not to worry, because you got a fresh ice pack in the fridge just waiting for that injury. I'll be thinking of some more ideas to share with you next time. For RecycleRightTN.com, I'm Rocky the Raccoon.
And that's today's Recycled Minute with Rocky the Raccoon. Find the closest place to recycle by going to RecycleRightTN.com.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
This morning we're talking about the Rutherford County School Choice Program, and with us this morning we have Dr. Jeff McCann and also Melinda Walters. And another question here asking if you could explain in simple terms what the Choice Program is. I think you covered that, but basically, if I understand it correctly, you're able to apply for a waiver of sorts in order to send your child to a different school within the Rutherford County system. Is that pretty much it in a nutshell?
Yeah, there'll be a certain number of open seats per school, and then they'll be able to apply for one of those positions, and then it's a lottery, so then they'll be notified if they were accepted.
And then how do we find out ahead of time if there's going to be seats open at that school that you want to send your child to?
That's a great question. Our policies require that we publish up to 14 days in advance of opening the lotteries, the number of seats that are available and at what schools. So we plan to get that posted probably mid-December, because the open seat lottery system opens for applications on January 1. Now, I will say this, though, our magnet programs, Central Magnet, Thurman Francis Arts Academy, McFadden, and Campus School, and Holloway High School, our virtual school, and our charter schools, their application windows actually open the 1st of December. And we'll get the number of seats they have available published by mid-November. It'll all be posted on our website. We'll also send out school messenger messages to parents where they can access that information and see.
And so while all of this is happening in the middle of the school year, does this mean the child is going to change schools in the middle of the year starting in January?
No, they'll continue at their school, their present school now, until the end of the school year, and then that would take effect next fall.
Now, are there any situations where a child could change schools in January?
The applications for the virtual school, Holloway High School, and our charter schools remain open year-round. So those schools have the option of accepting students really any time throughout the school year. Other than that, there is the opportunity to apply for what's called an emergency zone exemption to attend a different school, but you have to have some pretty significant extenuating circumstances for that to be granted.
And what types of circumstances are you looking at there?
You might have some kind of health need or some kind of emergency in your family that your custody has had to change, and you've had to go live with someone else, but you want to be able to continue at your previous school. It's those type of situations that we consider for emergencies.
Are child custody type issues, is that something that comes up often within the school setting?
I don't know if often is the right word, but it does occur frequently. It does.
And I guess that could be where one parent loses custody or maybe a parent passes away. I mean, there's a lot of different situations, I guess, there.
Yeah, one of them we see frequently is if a grandparent has to assume custody for whatever reason. That happens quite frequently.
Well, in those types of situations, the grandparent, she may actually, or he may actually live in that school zone, I guess.
They might. Mm-hmm.
But they still have to make that application because that would be a change in the middle of the school year in those cases.
If the child attends the school zone where the new custodial parent, the grandparent, so to speak, resides, there is no application that has to be completed. You can simply register at that new school, just as if you had moved. But if you wanted to remain at your prior school and not change to the new zone where the new custodian lives, you would have to apply for a zone exemption at that point.
Now, was there a point in Rutherford County where if a child started out at whatever school it is, maybe Riverdale, but yet the parents moved, was there a point where that child could still attend Riverdale to wait until, they graduated from that school, or did something change?
Typically, they will allow you to remain at that school for the rest of that school year. But once that school year is concluded, you have to move to whatever school you're zoned for.
Okay.
I mean, you could always apply for a zone exemption and maybe get one of those 10 open seats, or however many open seats that particular school has. But again, it would be a lottery situation, so you'd be taking your chances.
Now, I know a lot of the schools they've added on in recent years, and some, the additions were just opened this past school year. With that being said, do those schools that did add on, do you have open seats there?
We do, although ironically, we no longer allot those open seats based on capacity and empty seats. We try to make it an even distribution of seats across the board, so every school has the opportunity to offer seats to students. And we want to keep it fair, so we try to keep those numbers even from school to school to school.
And there's some schools that they literally don't have open seats, I guess, ever since they've opened. Rockville, is that an example of one?
It is, but we try to not make that number of seats so large that it would be an extreme burden on that school if they did fill them.
And how many students right now do you see typically per classroom or per teacher?
It depends on grade level. Typically in Rutherford County, we try to stick at those state recommendations. K through 3 of 20 to 1, and 4 and up 25 to 1. In high school, it gets higher than that, even 30 to 1.
And as new schools are built, when that school first opens, are you seeing usually open seats in the very beginning, or is it total opposite of that, where there's not open seats usually when a school first opens?
Usually our schools open pretty close to what their capacity is. I don't know that was the case for the new Poplar Hill Elementary, and I know there are some open seats at Browns Chapel, maybe out at Plainview, but for the most part, whenever we open new schools, they're close to capacity.
Now, I know you mentioned Stewart's Creek. That area, is that area... Now, that's the next area to get a new school, or what's being planned for a new school?
That is the plan right now for what we know. They're looking at some land there for a high school.
And that whole area has grown so fast. Smyrna really in that direction has grown exponentially. It's kind of wild to drive out there if you've not driven out there in recent years.
It's hard to believe how Smyrna has exploded over the recent years.
Is that the fastest growing area as far as a need for students, or are there other areas that are growing faster?
I say Stewart's Creek is probably the area that we have had the most challenge keeping up with growth. Even with the recent redistricting of schools, we've not been able to properly address the issues there at Stewart's Creek.
Now, when you look at the Blackman area, is that what goes up against the Stewart's Creek area?
That's another
zoning?
area. Yes, that's another quite area that is very, very crowded.
And I guess since, really 840 Veterans Parkway, that entire area, since all those new businesses, the medical offices opened out there, have you seen an increase in housing? Yes,
I think the housing just does not seem to stop.
It really doesn't.
Right.
Now, one direction that I don't hear a whole lot about would be the Walter Hill area, and then also Las Casas. I know there is growth out there, but it doesn't seem to be anywhere close to what we're seeing in South Rutherford County.
Doesn't seem to be, but that is one of the areas they've talked about in the future for a new high school in that area.
So would they be more so looking at Walter Hill versus maybe looking in Las Casas?
The talk is Walter Hill right now.
And right now, Walter Hill doesn't have a high school.
They do not.
So
those students all go to Oakland.
Oakland, okay. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty good drive, I guess, because Walter Hill goes, it feels like it goes almost out to the super speedway, but I don't guess it goes quite that far, but pretty close to it, right?
It does.
So that's another
almost
area.
To Wilson County.
Yeah. And that's an area where there is a lot of room for growth as far as neighborhoods. I know there's still a lot of land out there.
There is.
is the county school system, are they still asking for those who own land to maybe come forward and if they'd be interested in selling it?
I'm sure they're always looking for possible land to build schools on and maybe deals to be made.
And as we close this, I didn't realize it's already 8:56, but as we close this morning, for any parents wanting more information on the Choice School Program or to find out how they can send their child to a different school, how do they go about finding that?
Okay, if you go to our district website and you go to the Parents tab up at the top right-hand side, there's a green tab that says Parents, and a drop-down menu will pop up. You go to Rutherford Choice. And there's also a Rutherford Choice link just at the bottom of our main webpage. You don't even have to go through the Parent tab if you don't want to. If you click on that, it'll take you to the Choice page that talks about all that. It's not up to date at the moment. We're working on getting that done. The school board is today discussing any changes that might need to be made in the middle school rezoning. So hopefully we'll have that information soon and can update everything on the website. I will say this, if you're interested in one of our magnet school programs, Central Magnet, Thurman Francis, or McFadden, they're very, very popular schools. Very, very successful schools, top 3 schools in the state, honestly. But they all hold parent information nights coming up at the end of this month. All at 6 o'clock in the evening. Central's is on November 17th, Thurman Francis November 18th, and McFadden November 20th. It's 6 o'clock at their schools. That's where you can go learn more about their programs.
And we're coming up to that time where those dates where you're going to release the information on the open seats at different schools, that's coming up very soon.
Very, very soon.
It's going to be end of December, 1st of January.
We'll post the number of seats available at our magnet schools in the middle of November, actually in the next couple of weeks. And then for the open choice schools, we have to publish those 14 days before January 1. So it'll be mid-December at the latest before we open that.
Sounds good. And again, this morning we've been talking about the Choice School Program here in Rutherford County. And once more, all the information is on the Rutherford County Schools website. And you just go to the county school website and once more look for Choice Schools.
That's correct. And you can always email us with questions. choice@rcschools.net. That's a dedicated email line for the Choice School Program. choice@rcschools.net.
So any questions, that's
Absolutely.
the place to go.
Well, give us a call.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
Thank you.
Again, talking about the Rutherford County School Choice Program.